If you're a working mother or mother-to-be who would like to strike a balance between caring for your family and succeeding in business, welcome to Mother Industrialist Live Show, where we talk about entrepreneurship, parenting, and life. Kenneth Chu, the show host, brings in a different guest every episode to share how to perfectly balance parenting and work. Today, more than ever, you can choose to live life on your own terms, to craft a future for yourself and your family that is emotionally and financially rewarding. So sit back and enjoy the show.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about parenting your kids with purpose. Hi, welcome to episode 55 of Mother Industrialist Live Show, where we talk about entrepreneurship, parenting, and life. I'm Kenneth Chu, the host and also the author of Mother Industrialist. So this is my book, Mother Industrialist. So in Mother Industrialist, I've interviewed 50 mompreneurs that I personally know in the past 10 over years. And in this book, I interviewed them and featured them. And I'm also using this, what I call the 3Ps, which is passion, purpose, and profit, to illustrate their stories, to illustrate their entrepreneurship journey. At the same time, to share with the audience, to share with the readers, how they can use the 3Ps to kickstart their entrepreneurial journey. And in this episode, we're going to talk about parenting your kids with purpose. And today is not about me. Today is about this awesome lady that I've connected through Facebook, through our publisher. And she's the author of Parenting Your Kids with Purpose. She's a life coach, she's a speaker, and she's a granny with 5 children and 12 grandchildren. So without further ado, let us welcome Susie. Hi, Susie. Good to have you onto my show.
It's so good to be here. I'm so excited.
Me too. Yeah, I know that it's really early in the morning for you. We have about like 13 hours of time difference. I'm living in the future now.
Yeah.
Okay, so good to have you. And before we officially kickstart the show, there's a tradition that I have, which is every guest get to ask the question of the day to the guest and also out to the audience. So are you ready to answer the question of the day posted by the previous guest?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So the question of the day posted by the previous guest is, are you utilizing technology in your business to your best advantage? So I repeat again, are you utilizing technology in your business to your best advantage? So spend some time to think about it while I go onto Facebook to see if we are live successfully, and I'll come back to you, okay?
Okay.
Good. Okay, let me check if we're live successfully. Okay, we are live now and I can hear both your voice and mine. Okay, audio is good to go, and we have some guests coming on live. Maybe Susie, you can say hi to them.
Hello there. I'm so glad that y'all were able to join Kenneth on his show, and we're going to be talking about some good stuff today. So I'm glad all of y'all that are on the show today, I'm glad you took the time to set aside for yourself and be here. You're going to learn some great stuff today.
Wow, that's cool. Thanks a lot, Susie. And are you ready with your answer to the question of the day?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, cool. So share it with us.
Well, the question, am I utilizing technology in my business? I definitely am. And it's really interesting because I didn't necessarily know a lot about technology before I started my business, but I had to learn. And one of the ways that I learned, because we all know how it is to work on a budget, I did a lot of research and learning on my own and reaching out to people who did know. And so, yeah, I do use technology a lot. I've learned so much in the past year, just in all different aspects, not only in social media, but I pretty much created my own website.
Wow.
And I took about 6 or 7 months to study and do that. So yeah, I've learned a lot, and it's very important to use that, because that's where, especially busy moms,
Yeah.
that's kind of where they have an opportunity to kind of take a minute for themselves also.
Yeah, that's good. And also it's amazing because you are a granny now, you have 12 grandchildren, and you are learning to set up your own website for your business, your coaching business. And it's really inspiring because we I don't really know of any grandparents that are learning how to set up their own website, build their own website. They are constantly learning at the same time. So that is a really really a good answer to the question of the day. And now we can officially kickstart with the show. So I see there's some guest that's coming on live. Do let us know where you are tuning in from. Drop us a comment and let us know where you are from. And at the same time, for those who are tuning in, maybe you can share with us your answer to the question of the day of today. And are you utilizing technology in your business to your best advantage? Do give us your answers in the comment section. So now we can officially kickstart with the show, Susie.
Well, I wanted to just take a minute, first of all, to thank you so much for having me on. Kenneth and I have, like he said, we've had the same publisher, and so for the past year or so, we've been kind of kicking ideas and things back and forth. And Kenneth's doing some great work with his Mother Industrialist book and the things that he does. And so I thank you for what you're doing to help moms, Kenneth. It's really great to be able to have somebody to do that. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me on the show. I just wanted to, I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, I say thanks a lot for that for the encouragement, and really really grateful. If not for our publisher, I don't think that all this would be happening.
Oh,
And I'm
absolutely.
glad that I'm connected with a lot of mompreneurs, especially those who are with the same publisher, Black Card Books, Jerry Robert, and also really thanks for making time to come onto my show. So before we start, maybe you can do a short introduction out to the audience who do not know about you, and at the same time you can share with them what are you currently doing and what were you doing previously.
Okay. Currently, like you mentioned, I'm a life coach. I've been doing that for the past couple of years. I really enjoy that. And I've been doing some speaking, and that's what I'm fixing to start working on, getting some more speaking engagements and getting some more life coaching clients. I do have 2 other books that I'm working on to write. So those things are keeping me pretty busy. Previously, before I started this, I taught school for 21 years, and I taught at all grade levels. My specialty was reading. And in the first part of my career, I taught 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 6th grade. And then in the last part of my career, I was an assistant band director and a choral director. And so I really enjoyed that time in my life, and I learned so much from my students and watching the relationship between their parents and them. And so I really learned a lot about parenting in that setting, and that really helped me as I started raising my children. I quit teaching in 2010 and thought I would go back, but then I got busy doing all the things that I dreamed about doing, and so I never went back to teaching. But I've had a very blessed life, and I've loved everything that I've done.
Wow, that's cool. So you were saying that you left teaching in 2010. So what were you doing this past 9 years? I mean, you can share with us a bit of what you
Well,
have done.
the first little bit, I just needed a rest. I was burned out from teaching. I would because I was a band director and choir director. I spent hours before school and after school and on weekends giving voice lessons and taking kids to contests in band and in choir. And so my schedule was just very, very busy. It was not unusual for me to be at school by 7 o'clock in the morning, do my work day and still be there at 8:30 at night working with kids. And it was just hard, it was just hard on me. And the older I got, especially. So the first couple of years, I just kind of rested. My husband and I did a lot of traveling, and we did a lot of personal development. We worked on us, just
Wow.
what are our goals? What are our dreams? What do we want to achieve, that we haven't? And then the last years have been putting those things into motion,
Wow. And you were saying that that was 9 years ago, and you stopped teaching and you went for personal development, because a lot of times I will hear like people who are very educated, knowledgeable, they'll say, "Oh, I've learned a lot of things." Why do you see there's a need for you to have more personal development, although you've been like teaching, been like educated, and why are you going back to learn things? You can share with us, like for you being a granny at the same time.
Well, I think one of the things is that, we go through our life sometimes just doing the things we have to do. And then when we get to a point where we're able to think outside of how am I going to make this payment and how am I going to do this and how am I going to do that, and you start thinking about all the dreams and visions and hopes that you've had in the back of your mind your whole life, things that you wanted to achieve but didn't really see a way or see a path. And so for me, I was able to think, okay, now I have the time to accomplish some of these things. So what is it that I need to do to be able to do it? And it started with personal development, because, you've got to, as you know, Kenneth, you got to have your mindset right to be able to do some of these things that you want to do, because sometimes we have a life of, oh, I can't do that, or I'm too old for this, or whatever we tell ourselves, sometimes we have limiting beliefs. And so sometimes you have to work past that to get to a point of believing in yourself and finding information that you do need to know. Just like you were asking about technology earlier. I wasn't very familiar with that. So I needed to learn what I needed to learn to move forward. So.
And that is very interesting, because like you mentioned, right, that you talk about mindset, but most people, especially when I would say if you are working in an education environment, everything is very comfortable. And is it the burnout that make you take the step out of the box, out of your comfort zone? Was it that burnout that you have in teaching that causes you to really, hey, it's enough, I need to do something new? Is that moment that help you to step out and really go into personal development, to learn new things? Was that moment that really pushes you out of your comfort zone?
It really wasn't the burnout. It was the desire to do some things that had always been on my mind. If it's okay, I'm going to give you a couple of examples.
Yep.
Even though I had quit teaching, I missed directing a choir. And so I thought for a couple of years about starting a community choir. But, I was like, I don't know if I can do that, And so after doing some personal development, I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And so I did. In 2014, I started a community choir in our city, and we're starting our 6th season this year. And for 18 years, I had a vision that I wanted to build a performing arts center here in our city. And I spent most of those years, I never even told anybody about it, but I spent most of those years saying, oh, people like me don't do stuff like, we don't do stuff like that. And so I think whenever we're able to focus on dreams and goals that we really want, then we have to by nature, we just start taking the necessary actions to get there. And part of that is personal development.
Wow. And why do I want to dive deep into this? Is because I heard a lot of, I would say, excuses or a reason that they cannot do this, especially for mothers. They will say, oh, I'm a mom, I have 3 kids, I have a job, I need to juggle both motherhood and work. uh, I'm too old for this, and there's a lot. And what really that I want to find out from you is because you are much senior than us, so you might have a lot of reason not to do that, and you choose to do that because of your dreams. And was that like you always have that dream even though you were teaching, or your dream were being I would say being crushed, or like you say, oh, I'm too old, like it's too old for me to pursue my dream. Was there a moment that you almost give up on your dreams, or your dreams is always there?
Well, Kenneth, that's a great question. You know, when we go after the things that we want to accomplish and get to in life, it's a daily thing. I mean, yesterday I was working. I'm doing. It's hard work to be a mom.
Yeah.
And to go after your dreams also. And so I mean, yesterday I was up here at the office working, and I've been working really hard all week on some stuff. And yesterday I just sat back and cried for a minute, because I hadn't gotten a lot of sleep this week. I've been pushing myself to really do the work that I need to be doing. And, so we do have those moments where we're frustrated and we think, I can't do this. But for me, and I believe this is probably true for you of why you do what you do also, we start thinking about the people that we have the opportunity to help.
Yeah.
And for people like you and I, Kenneth, that's what keeps us going. It's not what necessarily what we're getting out of it, but the fact that we've been blessed with an ability to connect with moms and with people and help them help themselves to get to where they want to be.
Yeah. And you are absolutely right. And that is something that I'm always curious, that like from the moment I know you, I know about your background, I know you were teaching, you're a grandmother, and this is something that I want to share with the audience out there. A lot of times their dreams is about themselves. When your dreams are that small, it's hard for you to overcome all the obstacles, the challenges in life. Like for me, my why is not just for myself. It's for a bigger vision. It's for, you can say it, for my children, but I see it more than just my daughter. That's my family members, my loved ones. It's maybe for the livelihood for a lot of mothers. And for those who know me, I'm really passionate in advocating mompreneurship to mothers, and there's a lot of reason why, because of what the future that we're going into, and also are we ready to craft a better future for our children. And that's why I feel that mompreneurship is something that I've seen in a lot of mompreneurs that I worked in the past 10 over years. That's why I want to share on this. And I'm also very inspired by you because of you writing a book about parenting your kids with a purpose. Because in my book, I talk about passion, purpose, and profit. And this is something that just before we start the show, you shared with me that precisely that's the reason why you wrote this book. And maybe you can share with us why do you write this book, Parenting Your Kids with Purpose?
Well, when you get to be my age and you're able to look back on your parenting when you were younger, there's a lot of things you learn, and you put that with, again, what I learned from watching my students and their parents and their interactions. And so when my children got to the age where they were having kids, that's when they became very interested in my parenting strategies. And so as they were asking questions and saying, hey, Mom, how did you handle this? Or how did you do this? My husband and I were talking one day, and he said, you should write all this stuff down and give it to them. And I said, that's a great idea. So I started writing all this stuff down. And then whenever I got, as I started getting into it, one day my husband came home and he said, hey, I come across an opportunity for you to go. And it was one of Jerry Roberts' seminars. And so we went there, and then it just, took off. But originally it was because of my kids asking me, how do I handle this? How do I handle that? And then I'm very active in my community and my church, and I've done a lot of mentoring over the years. And so as I would have people come to me, that was a huge topic, parenting. And so I thought, hey, I'm just gonna get this down and put it out there.
That's really awesome. And just now I was about to say that like even for me, I have 10-year-old daughter. I will not say that I have a lot of years of experience of being a parent, but because of me working with a lot of mompreneurs 10 over years ago, I've learned a lot from them by sharing, because some of them have like three,
Mhm.
4 kids, and with a business is crazy. I do not know how they do it, but they share with me a lot. And by doing this Mother Industry Live Show, I learned from now currently episode 55. I've learned from 55 mompreneurs that share with me how to juggle their business, how to juggle their parenting, and that is a lot of tips, and that helped me a lot in me coaching mothers who want to start business, balancing both business and work, balancing business and motherhood. And one thing I want to say is all of us started new as new parents from our first child, and there's always a saying that there's no manual to parenting. So now, when with your book, I would say it is kind of like a manual for us, like a guidebook for us to
Mhm.
really know a bit more about parenting and how to parent better children, and what is the best way when you have living testimonials. You have 5 children, 12 grandchildren, and how you can impart all this parenting skill down to them, especially coming out with this book, which is Parenting Your Kids with Purpose. And so why parenting kids with purpose? Can't it be like parenting your kids with passion or things like that? Why is it the purpose? Why is it that important?
Well, it's important because, it's the same analogy as if you're going to go on a trip, and you have no idea where you're going. You might take a lot longer to get there, or
Mm.
you might not ever reach the destination. And so it's the same way with parenting, to think about your purpose. And what I've discovered, and probably one of the things that if I could go back and do over again,
Mm.
to really understand that everything that you do as a person, whether it's in your relationships with other people or whether it's in your parenting, you've got to tap into your core values,
Mm.
and everything you do and every decision you make should fall under the umbrella of those core values. Um, and when that happens, it makes your decision making a lot easier. Now,
Mm.
in the in the book, thinking about parenting your kids with purpose, just to put it simply, doing that starts with you. you
Mm.
know you've got to examine yourself, and in my book, that's what I do. I take 9 different areas, things
Mm.
like confidence,
Mm.
communication, handling decisions, decision making, handling disappointments, consistency, different things. And I ask the parent to look at, how do you maneuver and operate in these areas,
Mm.
and what are your kids learning about those things from watching you? Because unfortunately, sometimes we have attitudes, behaviors, and actions that we use and that we believe
Mm.
that really aren't effective in getting us to where we want to be. And
Yeah.
so, um, to me, parenting effectively means starting with you, the parent,
Mm.
and making sure that if you've got any limiting beliefs or negative things in your life, that you get rid of those, so that you're teaching your kids the best of you,
Yeah.
and not the negative things that don't really work. Because if,
Mm.
if you're teaching them negative things that don't really work, they're not going to have the life that you dream of for them.
Yep, yep. And I can see that your book is really structured. Like you have 9 different ways to really reflect, or like a checklist for them to really see where they are, to really
Mhm.
discover more of themselves or having the awareness. And so what do you see that what are the common things that most parents have, especially with these 9 methods that, or 9 ways for you to find out more? What are the common challenges for parents when they are parenting their children?
Well, I think time is a huge thing. I know, I just look at my children, and they're working full-time jobs, and they've got 3 or 4 kids. One of my oldest son and his wife are going to be having their 6th child in November.
Well,
And
congrats.
so I know, and so the time, and sometimes we're physically drained.
Yeah.
And how do you dig down deep to have patience with your kids, or to spend the time that you need to with your kids, when you aren't your best? You're tired, you're drained, you're frustrated, you're on edge, you don't have as much patience. And so I think it's important, you have to take care of yourself. Now, I'm not saying take care of yourself only. I'm just saying that you have to sneak times here and there to take care of yourself, so that you're good for your children. And so that's probably the biggest thing, because a lot of times parents don't take care of themselves.
Yep.
They're busy trying to be the employee that they need to be. They're busy trying to be the spouse that they need to be. They're busy trying to be, and so they don't have time for themselves. And so then when it comes down to it, they've given all of their patience and best part of themselves to everybody throughout the day. And then when they get home in the evening and their kids need that, they're like, I'm done. And so you have to dig down and say, you know what, I don't necessarily feel like doing this right now, but I know this is what my kids need. And so I'm going to push on and give them what they need, So I would say that's probably one of the big things.
Yeah. And this is what I've shared in a few of the past episode, that a lot of mothers are giving too much, and giving too much for anybody except themselves. And that's where I talk a lot about self-love and self-care. And that comes with like this analogy that I always use, um, like when you are on the plane, when there's an in-flight instruction. So when there's any accident, lack of oxygen, the oxygen mask will drop down, and they advise you to put it on yourself first before you attend to your child.
Yeah.
And the reason why, I always use this analogy to share with the mothers that I coach, is that you have to save yourself before you can save your children. Because if you save your children will not have the strength, the ability or capability to save you. Where you have to save yourself first, so that you have the ability to save your children. And that's where the oxygen mask is very important, for you to attend to yourself so that you can attend to your children. Because you have more ability. And but in reality, a lot of mothers are doing it in reverse. They are saving their children, and they are suffocating. They are depleting over time, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. And that's why there's a lot of pressure that a lot of mothers are having, and having to work, to be a working mom, that is really even more demanding on them. And imagine all of us have 24 hours, and all of that 24 hours are given to other people except themselves. So how will you feel in the end if this continue, and it just it's really compounding over time, and you realize that you are so stressed out, you are burnt out, you don't even take care of yourself, you lose your figure, you lose your self-confidence, you lose your self-esteem. In the end, you realize that, hey, you broke down. And when you broke down, you realize that, hey, you should not have done that. And when you broke down, who's going to suffer? Your children, the people around you.
Yeah, and another thing, Kenneth, back whenever I was talking about core values, there are a lot of things that come into our lives, and as we spoke earlier about, you and I, and many others, we do want to help other people, and so there's a lot of good things that come into our life that we want to do, but we have to get to a point where we ask ourselves, okay, is this going to fit under my core values.
Yeah.
When you identify what your core values are, if your core values are family and children, then some of the things that come your way, you may have to say no to right now.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that you can't say yes to them later, but I just find that to be a really good thing to use in knowing what you're to say yes to and what you're to say no to, and to think about, like you said earlier, where your kids are in their stage of life, because there's different times where you may be a little bit more available things than you are at other times, depending on your kids' development and their age and everything. But I have just really found that to be a great thing to do, because I'm one, and I would assume, Kenneth, that you're probably the exact same way, where somebody asks me to do something, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to help you do that. But then I have to stop and say, okay, how is this going to fit into my core values of what I want to achieve? And if the answer is, well, right now it really will take me away from where I'm headed, then, I politely decline right then, because it's not taking me where I want to be.
Yeah. And you just mentioned about the core values, which is very interesting. How do you derive with these core values?
Well, we have a moral code in the world. There is a moral code, and different individuals, that moral code has come from different places. But for me personally, I'm a Christian, and so I believe that the Bible is where our morals and values come from. And even if I weren't a Christian, I think as I've studied the Bible, there's just good concepts and ways to live that love other people and treat other people with respect. There's concepts in there. And so for me, that's my moral compass. Everything that I do is measured against the truth in the Bible. And so, but each person, everybody has their moral compass, where it comes from. And so I can't answer that for everybody, but I know for me, that's where my values come from. But you can also just think about how do you want your life to be? How do you want people to treat you? How do you want to treat others? What are your goals? And you put all that together, and then you make a list of, well, how am I going to get there? What is it going to take to get me from where I am to being the person that I want to be, to being the parent that I want to be, to being achieving the goals that I want to achieve? And then as you answer those questions and you write down your list of things it's going to take to get there, then anything that enters in the picture that doesn't move you towards where you want to be, it's not something that you need to focus on right now.
Yeah. So do you pen down your core values? You write them down?
Oh, yes.
So
Yes, it's the same.
Is it a long list?
Yeah. Because again, just like the example I gave earlier about, going on a trip and not having a specific destination, you're going someplace, but you're not exactly sure. And so how do you know when you're going to get there? And it's the same thing. You have to know. And I find things that are important to me, I write them down and I post them on my refrigerator so that I see them every day. Because we do get busy. Our mind does get clogged with other things. Temptations come into our mind that pull us away from the things that we want to accomplish, just like yesterday, the temptation to just throw my hands in the air and quit because it's too hard, I have to go back and remind myself. And the best way to remind myself is to look at it, and read it and tell it to myself.
and post it at a very prominent place. Like for me,
Yes.
I have my goal cards and my dream cards being pasted very near to my before I go into the bathroom. So it's on top of my mirror. So I have all my code cards, my goal cards, my dream cards is all there. So every day when I dress up, group myself, I will be seeing all those dream cards, the goal cards. And I was like, okay, have I done this? Have I done that?
Yeah.
So it's like really like what you call like a compass. Is like our GPS. This is something
Yeah.
that I always share my people that I coach, which is you have to know your destination and how to get there. You need to have that step by step, like different checkpoints. So you need to write it down, and you if you do not have your end destination, you don't even know where you're going. So the,
Yes.
the most important thing is where you want to go. Like for me, very simple, is to build a legacy
Hmm. Yes.
and empower mothers. That's the thing. I do not know how am I going to do it being a man, but I know I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So along the way, you will find bits and pieces, and like what you mentioned in the very beginning is your why and your desire and what you really want to do in your life. And that
Hmm.
also brings me um to how this is a very interesting question that I'm going to ask. Maybe a lot of parents have that in their mind, is how can parents parent their kid with purpose where they might not even found their own purpose in life.
Well, that's a great question, Ken, and that's why that's one of the reasons why I've written my book. I do spend a lot of time in my book talking about, and I've mentioned earlier, talking about getting yourself right, getting your mindset right.
Mm,
And so that's why it's so important for you to stop and take some time and figure out what is it that
mm,
you want to be in all areas of your life. You know, we like I mentioned before, what kind of a person do you want to be?
mm,
How do you want to handle situations? What kind of a parent do you want to be? What kind of a spouse do you want to be?
mm,
You think about all these things, and as you write down these things and as you think about them, that becomes those become important things. Those are who you are and who you want to be,
mm,
and those are the things that you want to pass on to your kids.
mm, mm.
And so if you haven't done that yet, then you are kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and letting it doesn't necessarily stick.
Mm,
And so to me, whenever that's one thing I look back on and wish I had done a better job at when I
mm,
was younger, is really identifying what kind of a person do I want my children to be.
mm,
How do I want them to be in their teenage years? Do I want them to be have a healthy level of confidence in the things that they do,
mm,
or not? Because if I want them to have a healthy level of confidence, then I'm going to have a healthy level of confidence and teach them
mm.
how to have a healthy level of confidence.
Yeah.
If I have low confidence, then more than likely my children are going to grow up with low confidence, and then in their teenage years, that's going to affect them.
Yeah.
And so you can take that in every area that is important to you and ask yourself, how do I want my children to operate in life when
Mm,
they're a teenager, when they're an adult?
yeah.
And then after I identify those things, to say, okay, well, what's it going to take for that to happen?
Mm,
And it usually starts with the parent
yep.
changing some things so that the children see what it is that you're wanting them to learn.
Yep. And that after you have shared that, right? I wrote a quote which is it start with you, not your children.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just have this idea. And also I realized something while you were speaking, while you were sharing on this part. I realized that if I do not know whether is it the same for parents over in your country, that parents are very good at planning for their children but not
Hmm.
for themselves.
Hmm.
Like my wife will start, okay, in the morning she need to have a breakfast, need to wear her clothes, need to go to school, need to wear this shoe, need to change her clothes, everything packed for her. Even before we go for a vacation, she will say, okay, this is the toiletries they need to use for day one, day two, day three, day four. So it's everything is planned, but for herself, none of this is happening for her. they
Yeah.
don't they don't plan for themselves. They plan for their children to maybe till they graduate, but they do not even think of plan for themselves.
Well, Kenneth, I think one of the reasons that they do that, especially moms do that, is because it's more convenient. I mean, here we are in the mornings, and we're trying to, we've got from the time we get up and get breakfast and get the kids ready and get out the door and get to work. Everything has to run very efficiently for us to be at work on time. And so one of the things that helps as a mom is we take care of all the little details so that there's no interruptions in the flow of the morning. But the unintended thing that happens when we plan out all of their things is they don't learn how to do it themselves. And so when they have everything done for them, they become very dependent. And then we find them, they've graduated from high school and they've never done these things for themselves, and they move out on their own and they're like, well, I don't know how to do these things. And, my kids, having 5 kids and working a full-time job, they had to help out. And so my children, as young as, if the ones that couldn't read, I drew pictures on index cards and posted of how to do the laundry.
Wow.
And then I wrote instructions for the ones that could read. And so my children at a very young age learned how to do their own laundry. Now, some people might think, well, that is just horrible, you making your kids do their own laundry. But when my youngest son graduated from high school, I also taught him how to cook, and how to clean. And when my youngest son graduated from high school and went his first semester to college, the very first thing he called home and told me was, Mom, these people down here don't even know how to do their own laundry. They don't know how to cook. He was like in shock. And so he, that me giving them opportunities to be independent when they were young. Now, I didn't say to be in control and making the decisions that a parent should make, but I'm talking about giving them opportunities to experience decision making and consequences and learning how to do things on their own. Then that set them up for success when they became adults.
All right. And you have just pointed out something that had always been in my mind, and you have put it very nicely, because you it's good that a parent is doing all this stuff for the children, but on the long run, in the future, that's why because for me, I've worked with all these mompreneurs. They have children of different age group. So as I see in the past 10 of years, they have grown up, and a lot of them are very independent because their mothers are mompreneurs. They manage their own business. They allow their children, for those who allow their children to help out in their business, they grew up to become more, I would say, more of an influence, more of a leadership qualities.
Yes.
And some of them, they are performing even better in all walks of life. They are good communicator. So these are life skills that in school, academic wise, you can't teach. You can't teach that. You have to teach that in your day-to-day life. Like my daughter that day, she was telling me that I brought her to Science Center because 2 years ago, I brought her there for charity work that I've organized with a team. So she said, "Hey, Daddy, when is the next time you're going to do this charity drive?" I said, "You still remember that?" So she's very intrigued in that. I love to do this. I love to help the less privileged children, and back then it was those that can't see and can't hear, and she really want to really give back. So these are things, opportunity that a lot of parents are not giving their children to explore, to really discover themselves, for the children to discover themselves, what kind of person they are. And this is very important for the future. And you mentioned that your is it your son that was saying that in high school that a lot of them can't do their laundry. It's the same for a lot of children now. And that day, one of my nieces, not I would say my cousins, so young cousins. So they had their driving license, but when their tire got punctured, they do not know how to change tire because it's always their parents doing the changing. So it's very widely seen in developed country that even the government is doing a lot of things for a lot of people. even for adults. Make it so convenient. I totally resonate with you when you say that uh, when uh, when we are given the opportunity to learn when we were kid. Like because I'm the eldest, I have two younger sisters. So since young, my mom had always trained me to cook, to do laundry, to do sewing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why now at home I can do a lot of things. But the thing that I was not trained was the electricity, like all the electrical appliances, like the light
Uh-huh.
bulb and all that. Because my dad is a mechanic, so he's very good with that. He deprived me from doing any of that. So like he's so good that he do it really fast so that I will not have my hands on it. But my mom just trained me so I can do a lot of things. Like when I go into the army, I can do a lot of things. I can wash my
Mm-hmm.
things. I can sew my own button if the button comes off. I'm basically I can survive because that is the life skill that I have that I
Mm-hmm.
see and that I wanted my daughter to have. But I would say that because the mass majority of the parents are not giving their children the opportunity, that also became like it's a norm that children are not supposed to learn all this stuff or learn to cook at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I felt that is taking away the ability for them to be better leaders in the future because
Mm-hmm.
these are life skills that I feel that where we are today is because of all this opportunity that's given to us because our parents are they are not educated enough so they need to work in jobs that require more time and that's where we have to do a lot of things by ourselves and because we also don't come from a wealthy family or well-to-do family we were poor because our parents are not educated and a lot of stuff so we came from that developing country that frugal environment but nowadays a lot of kids in developed countries they have all this in their environment like they can have iPad iPhone easily accessible to them as compared in the past. So, what is the challenges that you see that of parents today and in the past?
Well, um, I think the challenges basically are most of the challenges are the same. But one of the things that if you look at what the intellectual stimulation that kids have today
Hmm.
versus what they had, even 30 or 40, 30 years ago. I mean, I look back to when my kids were younger,
Hmm.
um, and there's just so many opportunities for kids today
Yeah.
to know more
Hmm.
because of technology. Kids at a
Internet.
younger age are getting on social media. They're in schools. I mean, I know in our schools, they're provided an iPad, a
Hmm.
notebook, iPad thing, so that they can do research and do their work on there. And back 30 years ago, we just didn't have that. We had to look it up, in the old book, And so I believe that anytime we have so much opportunity to put our hands on information,
Hmm.
it causes us to, especially kids,
Hmm.
I think it gets them to a point where they're like, hey, I know as much as you.
They know as
And so,
much as the teacher in school.
yeah, and so sometimes that can bring about attitudes,
Hmm.
that are frustrating and maybe a little bit difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
But I think kids have more opportunities, and
Yeah.
I also think that today, parents are busier. Sometimes some
Yep.
parents are working 2 or 3 jobs
Yep.
trying to make ends meet, and so that does make it more difficult to parent their children.
Hmm.
And so we're just in a different world. And to kind of tie this in with something you were talking about a while ago, I think when parents do things for their kids all the time,
Yeah.
I think it comes from a good place in their heart, I know for me, I grew up and we didn't have a lot. You've told me your story, you know, and we didn't have a lot. We didn't have a lot of toys. We didn't get to spend money on things that we wanted. And so whenever I had kids, my first thing was, I want my kids to have better than what I have. That comes from a good place because we do. However, we have to stop and think about, if I give my kids everything they want, what is that teaching them? If I do everything for them, what is that teaching them? And unfortunately, it teaches them that this concept of, if I want something, I'm supposed to get it. If I don't want to do something, somebody else will do it for me. And when they go out in life and they have those two mindsets, they're not going to be successful. You know, they're going to have, they may eventually be, but there's going to be a learning curve there before they get there. So I think, you know, talking about balance, I think that's where you have to balance your desire as a parent to want your child to have a better life than you with, what are the things that I need to be doing so that they have a good life, but yet they learn how to do these different strategies that will help them be more successful in adulthood.
And you really nail it for with that question that the parents should ask themselves, what is it in for the children? Is it helping them or is it diminishing them? I would not say being successful, being able to be in the workforce in the future, because if they do not know of all this, like I guess it's always setting a standard for our children. Like you were saying that, hey, if everything we give it to them, in the future when they became working adults, they go into the society and people say, no, you cannot have this. And what will happen to them? That is something that is in my mind. Will they crush, and that means their heart will be crushed, or maybe someone rejected them and they feel so bad, and that's why maybe they will do silly things from there, or they will not be able to control their emotions and they start hitting people. You might not know what will be that repercussion, that what is the seed that you're planting now.
And you know, Kenneth, if you think about your child and you look forward to them holding down a job, you know, is their boss going to hold their hand the way that we as parents do? They're not. And so what is that going to bring about for your child? It's going to bring about, until they do something different, it's going to bring about a series of, they're not going to be able to hold a job down because the boss is not going to do the work for them. The boss is not going to, you know, be kind and considerate necessarily when they don't feel like doing something, or, you know. And so as parents, sometimes we really, we really hold our kids back by not giving them opportunities. And I'm talking about genuine opportunities that are developmentally appropriate for your child at the ages that they are. There's ways at every age to give your kids opportunities to develop independence.
Correct. And you, when you mentioned that part, right, it just triggered that memory in me. That's why I'm very thankful that my dad did not give me a lot. That's why it became a part of me to strive for a lot of things that I wanted, that I make effort, like in sales, in business, in anything I want, even writing a book. Like I realized that whatever that I set myself for, I will just make it happen.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kenneth. You know, whenever I was talking earlier about confidence or low confidence, see, as parents, if we do everything for our kids and then they get out and we don't teach them along the way to do things, because how do you gain confidence? You gain confidence by doing. You might not be successful at it, but you learn something and then you're able to try it again, and you just keep on. We've got to teach our kids that. But if we don't give them those opportunities, then whenever they get up into their teenage years or their adulthood, they're like, they don't have anything to build from, because mom or dad has always done it for them. And now they're out on their own and they don't have any confidence in their ability to be successful in the things that they want to be successful in. So we just have to give them, you know, we have to give them those opportunities, because it's good for them.
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, thanks a lot. And time really flies, and I believe that we can do this like another episode or what. But maybe you can share with us that because you are now currently running your own business. So do you believe in balancing your parenthood and your business?
Well, again, I will have to say the answer to that. I, I'm not so sure it's about balancing, but it gets back to focusing on your core values.
Hmm.
And and I say core values. It might be for somebody else, the things that you want to accomplish. I really believe that every person needs to sit down and think about, how do I want my life to be in all of these different areas,
Hmm.
and then you're able to make decisions that don't put you out of whack in your time, in who you give your attention to, in all of those different areas. So that knowing those core values are those things that you want to accomplish, and then asking yourself when other things start coming into you that look good, but to be able to say, oh, does this line up with this?
Hmm.
And if it doesn't, then saying no to it, it is a form of balancing your life,
Hmm. Yeah. And you have touched a point that I always shared also, that balancing is not about really like what we know, like a weighing scale, like a 50-50. It's very much of what I call self-awareness. And in
Mm-hmm.
order to have that self-awareness, you need to discover yourself. That's why I bring my coachee through this, what I call the self-discovery process. Then from there, they will be able to map out and understand and have that self-awareness. And that is where
Yes.
they from self-awareness, that's when they will start to craft or even to state their three P's: their passion,
Mm-hmm.
purpose, and profit. Because
Yes.
without their self-awareness, they are not able to know, hey, where am I going? Where am I good at? What's my talent? What's my calling? What's my core values? Because with that self-awareness, it's basically solve a lot of things. Because a lot of times we do not have that time, like you mentioned. We really have to sit down, reflect, going through all the questions, and start finding the answer for it before we can move to the next step. That's
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of people are not moving on. They are stuck. And from a lot of golden nuggets that you have shared, so maybe you can share with the audience how they can get connected with you, Susie.
Well, I have a website. It's susiemeals.com, and meals is spelled Meals, like a meal you would eat.
Mm.
So susiemeals.com. And then I do have a business Facebook page. It is Susie Meals Life Coaching
Mm.
on Facebook. And I have an Instagram, and it's Susie Meals. So anyway, that's how people can connect with me. I write blogs. I try to write a weekly blog, and I do
Mm.
some posts on Facebook. And anyway, that's how they can connect with me.
That's good. So for those who are who wants to connect with Susie, you can check out the description that I posted in with this live video, and you can get connected with her. She will be more than glad to really help you out, or even in your parenting skill, or even get a copy of her book. So last but not least, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, that every guest get to ask the question of the day out to the audience and also to the next guest. So Susie, are you ready with your question of the day?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, share
Okay,
with us.
my question is, are the attitudes, the behaviors, and the actions that you have moving you toward the person that you want to be?
Wow, that's a very long question. Will you be able to repeat it again, maybe to rephrase it?
Yes. Okay. Are
Mm,
the attitudes,
mm,
behaviors,
mm,
and actions
mm.
moving you toward the person you want to be?
Okay.
So, in other words, are the things that you do, which when I say things, I'm talking about the attitudes, behaviors. Are your attitudes, behaviors, and actions, are they moving you towards the person you want to be or not?
Okay, so I'll repeat the question of the day posted by Susie, which is, are the attitudes, behaviors, and action moving you towards the person you want to be? Okay,
Yeah.
so this question go out to the next guest and also out to those who are tuning in and watching. This will be Susie's question of the day. And last but not least, any last advice for the mothers who are thinking of pursuing their passion or even stepping into business, Susie?
Well, you know, again, identify what it is that you want, you know, because there'll be times of frustration, especially if, you're trying to start something new and you're trying to parent and all of that. And so I challenge you to write it down, have it clear what it is you want to achieve. And then whenever you get frustrated or times get hard or you want to throw your hands up and quit, go back to that and look at it, what it is you want to do and why. What is your purpose in wanting to do it? Because in remembering the why, that's usually the motivation that we need to keep on going.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for the last advice. For those who are watching, do check it out. Do really take this advice from and a lot of golden nuggets from this episode from Susie about parenting your child with purpose. And that's all for today. And Kenneth here signing off with Susie. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. And thank everyone. And thanks Susie for making time onto my show. And
thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And I'm Kenneth here signing off with Susie. Thank you very much. And I see you guys in the next episode. See you. Bye bye.